Just a quick disclaimer, this ain't a how-to. You tear yours apart and can't get it back together, it ain't my fault. I'm just a dumb hillbilly that won't pay nobody to do nothing. Well, welcome back everybody. Round Body Bob here. Today we're starting on pressing the gears off of these counter shaft and the main shaft. What I've ended up deciding to do, I've been all over the place recording with this, so hopefully you can kind of follow along. Hopefully it'll help somebody out. I've decided to use all the gears out of the 76 case. Something they do not show you, or something I have not seen anybody ever mention. The rebuild kits come with 2 bearings for the counter shaft. And I got to thinking the cases are different. My 81 up case, I could get a puller in behind this bearing and pull it off. Actually, the homemade puller I made with the bolts. The 67 to 77, I'm guessing, style case has this bearing. And the case is not notched all the way through to be able to get a puller behind this. This was the one that I welded the bolts to the bearing to get it out. So what I'm going to do, the gears, are perfect in this 76 case. So what I've done, I'm using all the 76 gears. By doing that, I've got to use the 76 case because of this bearing. They're different sizes. The old style had a lot bigger bearing in the bottom of it, and they do not fit. Even the end of the shaft is different sizes. So yeah, we're going to use the 76 case, 76 gears. Pretty much I'm putting my 32 spline main shaft in this 76 case. With all new bearings, synchronizers. I got a torque lock 3rd gear. I didn't have this collar because I originally planned on putting it on the 81 up transmission that had the collar already on it. So what I done was press this off, put this collar on here, and so we're fixing to press all the gears off the 32 spline shaft, get the shaft ready with new bushings. When the 3rd gear gets here, we're going to press all the 76 model gears onto the 32 spline shaft. This should work. The only difference I've really seen in them is that lower counter shaft bearing. And I've never seen anybody mention the counter shaft bearings being different. So that's where we're going with this. I've got the counter shaft ready to go. Got some cleanup to do. I'm going to take some brake cleaner, clean it up, get some assembly lube before I start putting it all together. But I'm going to set it to the side. We're going to get the main shaft up here, start breaking it down. All right, so I've got my 81 up main shaft here. Just to make sure we don't get nothing out of order, out of whack. Got a piece of number 6 wire. We are going to just stack it up. So this is our 3rd 4 slider. Going to be on this end. I'm going to go ahead and pull our low gear off and the rear thrust washer. Now the washer they sent me was for the short bushings. There's 2 different lengths of bushings. I know this 81 up had the, is it a 1.86? 2nd gear's a 1.84. Some of these kits use a 1.84, 1.84, and have a step thrust washer. We're probably not going to use that thrust washer. I'm going to do some measuring when I get this all put together, kind of get an idea. I don't want nothing being too tight in here. We'll kind of play that by ear, but I do have the bigger 1st gear bushing like what's factory in this truck. And as you can see, those bushings on this is wore pretty good. Pretty good. Next, we're going to get our reverse driven gear, which is also your low 2nd gear slider. Your 1 and 2 shift fork rides in here. The rest of this, Going to have to pull probably going to press the rest of this off from second gear up. We're going to put it in the press it off, lay it over here, get it stacked up in the order that it goes, and probably try to get the bushings off. I don't know if I'm going to try to press them off. You can just split these apparently with a chisel. They're a pretty poor quality metal, but let me get this snap ring off. We'll get it over to the press and try to get all these pressed off of here. I will say the snap ring pliers have been very handy, but like I said, I've not used a whole lot of fancy special tools. All right, we're gonna get this over to the press. Press this from here off. I'm also gonna press the 1-2 synchro hub assembly off of it because I'm probably gonna use the one off the 76 also. All right, so I've got the main shaft. I've got the low gear removed off of it. The 2-3 shift rail with the reverse driven gear, and also have the 3-4 shift collar off of the front. I'm gonna put these plates under second gear and just put a little bit on this, kind of see how it does. That scared the wife a little bit. Not for sure if I can get all this without putting a spacer in there to get it all off or not. But, yep, there it went. Scared her again. Scared. Notorious for mashing fingers off, so she's worried about my fingers. All right, so I'm going to take all this over to the table, lay it on there, get it ready to go on. All right, then next, over here on the press, we're going to go ahead and press this second gear synchronizer drum off. I'm going to go ahead and take the synchronizer ring off of this. We're getting a new one of those, but I'm going to lay these in place just the way they come off of this. Pretty much, I'm going to get this stripped down to a bare 32 spline shaft. All right, so I end up taking a chisel and splitting my old bushings. Not bad, a few good licks, and they'll split and release enough tension, they'll slide right off. All right, so I'm pressing the had a brain fart for a minute. The second gear synchro drum off. First gear back here is not synchronized, so there's no synchro ring on this, just on the front side. So pulling be the 1-2 synchro drum, has the springs, little clips that the synchros snap to, and this will have our 32 spline main shaft stripped completely down. So we're going to get it over here on the table. I'm going to lay this over there, get everything put, kind of the way it was on the shaft, and go through what's what of it. All right. We're going to just do a quick run through again. I got all these gears pressed off the shaft. Shafts are out, gears pressed off. This is off the 32 spline. This is your counter shaft. I call it an idler shaft a lot of times. It's your counter shaft gear at the bottom. This is toward the front of the transmission. This is toward the front of the transmission. Fourth gear, third gear, second gear, reverse, and low. Got the steel shaft on here. That'll be going back in with the 76 gears. Actually, this is already yet put together. We're going to go from back to front. This would be the rear of the transmission. You're going to have thrust washer. low gear, granny low, first gear, you are going to have, get out of there, your first, second shift, first and second gear synchro drum. Got the springs and the dogs in it. Second gear, first, second gear shift collar, as well as reverse driven gear. Second gear synchronizer. Make sure when you're putting them together, the dogs fall in there. You want the dogs in there. Got second gear. You have the thrust washer with a catch that goes on the shaft. This is third gear bushing. I'm sorry, kind of ignore it. Then you've got third gear. Get on there. You got your third gear synchronizers. You got your 34 synchronizer hub. Remember, the thrust surface goes toward third gear against the synchronizers. Make sure the dogs fall in the collar when you're putting it together. You got your 3/4 shift collar. Remember, the groove goes toward the input shaft from the transmission. Synchronizers. Input shaft, which also has fourth gear. And that's all they are to stacking the gear set back up on one. So we're going to get all these put on the shaft, get it 32 spline shaft on the other gears, and get it ready to go in the case. All right, so we got the 32 spline shaft, everything off of it. Going to get it cleaned up. Here's the 10 spline shaft out of the 76 case. Here's the input shaft. I didn't have this laid up here with the 32 spline case, but you can see it has the fourth gear on it. So we're going to get started here. I'm going to set the input shaft to the side. This is the input shaft I'm going to use also. The other one, the bearings had gotten in pretty bad shape and was starting to nick it up a little in here. I mean, nothing major, but this one's just altogether a lot better shape. So pretty much every gear out of the 10 spline, pretty much we're doing a 32 spline swap. We're putting this 32 spline shaft in that 10 spline case. So I'm going to set up here. I'm not going to show you much of this because I went through all this before with the other one. So let's get started. I'm going to get all this pressed off, get these gears laid out, get this cleaned up, get it in the freezer, heat my new bushings up, get them ready to press on, and start putting all these gears. I can get pretty well all of it on there. Pretty well all of it, I believe, with exception of third gear and the 3/4 synchro drum. I'm still waiting on it. Hopefully it'll be here Monday or Tuesday, but we can get most of it done anyway. All right, so before we start pressing, I got everything off of the 76, all the gears off it. These are the gears we're going to use. I'm going to use the second gear synchro drum on the 32 spline shaft, using everything on the 32 spline shaft. So before I put this shaft in the freezer, we are going to go ahead and get this second gear drum pressed back on. I'm waiting for the springs and the dogs. I can put those in after everything gets, even with it being on here. So we're going to go ahead and get it pressed on. That way I can get the shaft in the freezer, get the bushings in the oven, and get it all put back together. So I'm going to take this out and get it cleaned up a little bit, and we'll get this pressed on. Oh, so I got new synchronizer springs, the hub, synchronizer hub. I got new springs, and the dog's keys. And if you'll notice, instead of getting a 1, 2, and a 3, 4, I got 2, 3, 4s. So I went through my 1, 2. They looked decent. These actually even look decent. But since third gear is the gear that, you know, it can happen in, I'm going to go ahead and replace these. I'll have an extra set put up in case I never, don't worry, I'm never going through it again, but just in case. So these are not bad to change. Get you a screwdriver, get behind the spring right here, and just pry the spring out. What this does is holds those dogs and allows those synchronizers to, I guess, kick back and forth. I don't really, I don't know what they do, but they're in there. We're going to change them. We're going to change them. Dadgummit. I'm going to put an eye out in a minute. So I'm going to get me, clean this up real quick, and I'll be right back. All right, so to put the new dogs in, dogs, not you, Bella, not you. Slide them into the groove. I'm going to do this all standing up, backwards, and away from me. But anyway, drop your dogs. They only go one way. Down in here. Take you a spring. And make sure, just hook it, start it on one of the first ones. You want all 3 of these to have spring behind them. Something like so. Make sure they've locked in to the behind the little ear on the dog. And if you can see it, it should look something like that when you get it in there. So I'm going to flip it over, put the other spring in. And I think I'm going to rotate, not have the spring in the same spot, if that makes sense. Yeah. Maybe. Don't know that it matters, but it matters to me, I guess. Not really. Ah! And there is the other one. Just make sure those cannot push completely out. Spring should be behind each one both ways. All right, so there's our 3/4 synchronizer drum. I'm gonna get the main shaft laid back up here, get it, and here's the new third gear, torque lock third gear. What in the heck is different about it? I don't know. I don't see nothing other than it's got a groove cut in it. I could have took a grinder and done that to mine, and it would have probably worked. No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. But I'm gonna get it put in, and yeah, but we'll be ready to put the shafts and the transmission in. All right, so we are going back together. I have my second gear synchro drum ready to press onto the splines. That'll be the first thing. A lot of people don't even take this off. I was changing everything from the one shaft to this one. It will press on from the bottom. Make sure this groove is toward the bottom. You want this synchro ring to be able to lay toward the front of the transmission. That way it meshes into second gear. Gonna get it pressed on real quick, and then I'm gonna throw all this in the freezer. Freeze this shaft for pretty much most of the day. Get the bushings put in the oven and get them pressed on. So let's get the second gear drum, synchro drum, pressed back on. When you're doing this, there is a thrust surface on the bottom of this. Make sure it's not setting on the edges of your press or anything that could mess up that surface. You'll be able to see this ring once this bottoms out. Give it just a little bit, and that is it. We are going to take this, get it thrown in the freezer, and start heating up the bearing, the bushings. Get the bushings ready. So this is the back side of your transmission. That will slide on this way with the groove, the spring for the lugs toward the back. All right. All right, let's talk about these bushings from what I figured, what I found. Not really figured, I ain't really figuring nothing. All right. This is the first gear main shaft bushing from the 81 to it. The truck was 81 to 83, 32 spline shaft. Apparently in 78, they went with the 1.86 rear bushing, longer bushing. 77 down at a 1.84 on second and first gear. So with this being said, I need to make sure my thrust washer is a 0.87, a 0.187. So the thrust washer that came with my kit will work with the longer 1.86 bushing. I think Novak is one of the kits that puts both second gear bushings for first and second, and they send a step washer that is stepped up to take up the difference in it. So kind of do a little research on that. You know, like I said, this is the first time I've had one of these transmissions this far apart. So I'm just kind of learning as I go. But from everything I've measured and marked, the bushing that I bought for the newer model 78 plus first gear bushing will work with the rear first gear thrust washer that I have. So we'll get started, get these bushings heated up, get them put on the main shaft, and go ahead and get first, second gear, all that set up on the shaft, and pretty much going to have it ready when my third gear gets here. I can get my third gear on and have everything ready to go. Hopefully that don't confuse nobody, because it's confusing to me. Why they would have done that makes no sense. You can tell setting the second gear by the first gear if there's a difference, and I mean you can feel the difference. So 1.86 bushing and a 1.84 bushing. If you have a 67 to 77, you're going to have the 1.84 first and second bushing. Third gear bushing is different, a little smaller in diameter. You'll see it when we start pressing them on here. So I was going to put these in the oven. And by the way, I found the spanner wrench off my four-wheeler. Hopefully that'll fit the lock nut on the back of that transmission. We're going to weld a little old 1/2-inch socket onto it and torque it. We're going to do this one right. We ain't going to use impact. We're going to do it halfway right. And it's better than being all the way wrong. Right? Maybe. Yeah. All right. So I've had my shaft in the freezer. I read I've got my press sleeve here. I read where a guy said he heated his up with a torch, just a little propane torch. Shaft's been in the freezer. I put just a little grease. He said his just fell right on. So I've got my first gear bushing here. Before you put this on, be sure and get your second gear synchro drum on, because once this bushing goes on, it's not coming off. Hopefully it just slid right on there. Didn't even need that grease on there. Probably not going to grease the next ones. And like I said, I didn't get that bushing too hot. I do have a press sleeve for that. We may just give it just a nudge just to kind of make sure it's seated good, but it's cooling off on that shaft. It's already stuck in place. That was quite a bit easier than trying to press them on like I've seen a lot of people do. And yeah, I'm just using a block of wood. Just a block of wood. Socket ain't gonna fit, so we're just gonna give it just a little bump. I will say when you're pressing this one on, I'd say it's on there. When you're pressing this one on, be careful because you could start to press that second gear synchro drum back off. So now we're just going to flip this over. The only two you're going to want to put on right now is your first and second. Don't put the third on yet because you have that thrust washer. It goes between them with a tit on it that will sit right here. Let me get the second gear one warmed up just a little bit. I'm going to have to reset all of this. Get it picked up here. And just in case I need to press, actually, I can just do it right there. That'll work. All right, so I'm going to get the second gear bushing warmed up and slide. All right, so I got my second gear bushing warmed up. Like I said, third gear bushing will not go on until after we get the second gear and all this stacked on here because there's a thrust washer. It rides right here. So we're going to go ahead and see if it won't just, yeah, it ain't going to drop on like the other one. So we're going to do a little bit of pressing on this one. And it's not wanting to go start straight. I don't like that. These can bust fairly easy. And we've got it going pretty good right there. This should not be a very hard press. This piece of wood should work fine. We're just going to work this on till it bottoms out against that second gear hub assembly. I'm going to start feeling right here. I just want to make sure that my sleeve, my press sleeve, is not hitting the shaft anywhere. If it starts binding up before it bottoms, I am going to stop pushing. And it is. So we're going to try to recenter that just a little bit. Somewhere right there. And see if we can get her to go on down. And it is bottomed. That was a little more aggravating than first gear, but it is on there. First gear bushing, second gear bushing. This is the output side. Make sure you get the correct bushing in the correct spot, unless you have like the Novak kit that has either bushing for each one. So we're going to get second gear put together here, get it on the shaft so I can get the thrust washer in while the shaft is still pretty cool, and get the third gear bushing put on. All right, so my get these old bushings out of the way. We're not going to need those anymore. My kit came with new synchros. I don't have any break-in oil, so I'm going to just use a little bit of GL4 8090 gear oil. I'm going to just put a little bit on these synchronizers. This is a new one out of the kit. I give them a good liberal coating of oil. Also inside the second gear synchro drum. Get that thrust surface oiled up good. when you set the brass synchronizers in the drum, make sure the notches fall into the little dog, like so. Next, I'm going to oil up this bushing that we just pressed on really good. Next will be our second gear going on. Going to oil it up also really good. Once we get it oiled up, I'll slide it onto the second gear bushing. Maybe. I have seen people have to press them down a little, but with just a little wiggling working, it went. Alright, so next, and my kit also came with a new one. You're going to have a new thrust washer. This is the reason you can't put the third gear bushing on just yet. You'll notice there's a notch right here. So we're going to oil the back side of this up real good. Get that put in. Set it back over here on the press. Make sure you oil these surfaces really good. I really wish I'd had some break-in oil, but I didn't. So make sure that little notch is in that groove on the shaft. Alright, so once we get to that point, we're going to take it back over here to the press, heat up the third gear bushing. This shaft's still fairly cool, and get it put on. Alright, heating up the third gear bushing. I'm going to put some plenty of lube on this thrust washer. Plenty of lube. Lube it up. Heat this bushing up just a little bit. So, actually, that slid right on there. So freezing that shaft, heating those bushings just a little bit, and it's already locked on there. It's a tight fit. We are going to put the press on it just a little bit and give it just a smidge, just to make sure everything's down on there tight. And we should be golden, like ready to go. As soon as third gear gets here, we'll be set. Actually just using my finger and the jack just to put a little on there, just to make sure everything's snugged up and in place. I'll let it sit there for a minute, and for today, that's as far as I can get. There's not really a lot of difference, but other than that groove that I've seen. So I don't know, maybe it was worth the $80. We'll see. We shall see. Alright. We shall see. So I'm going to oil her up a little bit. Oil it up. Good snug fit on that new bushing. Got it on there. I'm going to get my synchronizer. Would help to turn it the right way. And next will be our drum. We're going to take it over here, get the drum pressed on, and we'll be done. I had this on there wrong when I first showed you. It needs to go with this thrust surface against the bushing. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on there before I press her down on there. Alright, so I took it over, pressed the drum on, the main shaft, third gear's on, new synchronizer, clip. There's a new C-clip, goes on the end of the shaft. Once you get this done, you are pretty well done with your main shaft. I still have the input shaft. Don't forget your shift collar. This groove goes toward the front, toward fourth gear. And I'm going to get the C-clip put on, and we'll be ready to start putting these shafts back in the case. Got to get my first gear laid back up here, my low gear, and get it slid back on the end. But other than that, we are ready to put it back together in the case. So I'm going to get this clip put on. Got the new synchronizer to go here in the input shaft, which is also, like I mentioned before, your fourth gear. And we'll be ready to roll. Yep. Alright, so I'm going to get my lock ring put on. Take my old trusty lock ring pliers. Open her up. Open up. Open up. Get what in the devil? Get in there. Get on in there. What in the devil? Quit walking. Quit twisting. Stop it. Quit. You dadgum piece of junk. Get in there. There we go. Alright, so this snap ring, you want to make sure that is popped and seated fully into that groove on that main shaft. If not, you're going to have some issues. Alright, so the main shaft's pretty well complete, with exception of my driven reverse gear. This is also your shift fork for 1-2. Granny low 1 for politically correct people. And my low gear, first gear, low gear. And do not forget your thrust washer on the end. I'm going to oil it just a little also. And the main shaft is done. We are done. 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 And that's the way your main shaft should look. You got granny low, first gear, your reverse driven gear, also the slider for 1-2. And it's sitting on it. But for 1-2, second gear, you have a set of synchros in here. Make sure that drum has the groove toward the back. Third gear, third and fourth gear slider. Right now it's slid into third. That would be neutral, and all the way forward right here. I don't have that. Is fourth. So it's not being that bad, really. Anybody could do this. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm gonna get the bearings put on here, replace the oiler. Ah! Ah! Replace the oiler on the input shaft, and we'll be pretty well done tomorrow. Thank goodness. Well, guys, that's gonna be about it for this video. I've got a mess, but stick around for part 4. Get the transmission put together. About time to put it back in the truck, and hopefully it'll make it at least up the driveway. Hopefully this helps somebody out. Like I said, this ain't really a how-to because I don't really know what I'm doing. But I've always done everything myself. Never had the money to pay nobody to do it, so don't be afraid to try to figure something out. You got something that's broke, you ain't gonna know if you can fix it till you try. And what you're gonna do, break it even worse? It's already broke. So don't be afraid to try to do something on your own. This has been a very satisfying job for me. I've enjoyed it. I will say getting the bearings out of the case, a little bit rough, but all in all, it's been really fun. I'm looking forward to getting it back up and under there, though. So don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, hang around for part 4, and we'll have a video, hopefully, taking it down the road one more time. Thanks again.